He walked out the front door, the most unbelievable prison escape ever recorded, the door that should have never opened. Subscribe now, because once you hear how a convicted felon walked out the front door of a maximum security prison without a single guard stopping him, you'll never trust a locked door again. The story begins at Redwood Correctional Facility, a concrete giant perched on the edge of northern Nevada's desert. It wasn't known for being friendly. It wasn't known for being fair. It was known for being impenetrable, the kind of place where the prisoners joked that even ghosts couldn't find a way out. It held murder suspects, gang enforcers, escape risks, and men who had tried every trick in the book to slip past the law. But none of them had ever done what Derrick Calloway did. Calloway wasn't the biggest, strongest, or smartest inmate. But he was the quietest. Arrested for armed robbery and suspected of a string of burglaries across Utah and Nevada, he kept his head down and served his time. Guards described him as forgettable. Inmates said he acted invisible. And that was exactly what made him dangerous. On the morning of June 14, 2019, Redwood woke up to chaos. Alarms blared. Radios crackled. Warden Holt stormed across the yard with a fury that shook the entire staff. Derrick Calloway was gone. Not missing. Not escaped. Gone. His cell was clean. His bed made. His inmate uniform folded neatly on the floor. Most disturbing of all, the cell door showed zero signs of forced entry. Cameras captured nothing unusual. No blackout. No glitch. No one approaching the hallway. The footage showed guards walking their rounds like any normal morning. But one thing stood out, something subtle, almost invisible, and easily overlooked. At 6:11 a.m., a guard walked past Calloway's cell. At 6:12 a.m., the guard walked back. At 6:13 a.m., he opened the door to cell 7. And at 6:13 a.m., the camera angle shifted, just slightly, as though someone had nudged it. When it realigned a moment later, Calloway was simply gone. Detective Mara Quinn arrived by noon. She had handled thousands of cases in her career, but this one felt wrong from the start. No one walks out of Redwood, she muttered as she scanned the footage. Not unless someone holds the door. Her partner, Special Agent Ryan Keller from the U.S. Marshals Service, replayed the footage in slow motion. "Watch the guard," he said. His left hand twitches every time he passes Calloway's cell. Like he's tapping something. Quinn leaned closer. "A signal?" Keller nodded. "Or a countdown." As they investigated, the guard, Officer Raymond Pike, mysteriously called in sick and never returned to work. His phone went offline. His apartment was empty. His bank account untouched. It was as if he vanished the same way Calloway did. That was the first red flag. The second came when Quinn found a note tucked inside Calloway's folded uniform. It was small, barely larger than a receipt, written in tiny block letters. "It wasn't my first time." The handwriting trembled slightly, not from fear, but from excitement. Like the author enjoyed leaving breadcrumbs. Quinn's pulse tightened. "This wasn't a spontaneous escape," she said. "This was rehearsed." Keller found something else while analyzing Redwood's entry logs, a visitor named Michael Trent, who had entered the facility 3 days earlier using state credentials from the Department of Corrections. There was one problem. No one named Michael Trent worked for the Department of Corrections. And the signature on the log didn't match the real Trent's handwriting. An imposter had walked into Redwood. And Calloway had walked out. As Quinn and Keller prepared to interview staff members, an officer ran toward them, out of breath. "You need to see this," he said, voice shaking. "It's about Pike." They followed him to the lower administrative wing, where he pointed to a locked storage room. The door had been sealed for years, used only for outdated files. But inside, Keller found something that sent a cold chill crawling up his spine. A guard's uniform. Folded neatly. Clean. Barely worn. And stitched into the collar, a name tag. D. Calloway. The imposter inside the walls. For a long moment, Quinn just stared at the uniform folded inside the storage room. The fluorescent light above flickered, casting the name tag, D. Calloway, in an eerie, pulsing glow. The fabric was crisp. Clean. As if someone had prepared it for a shift that never happened. Keller knelt beside it. He didn't just impersonate a guard, he said. He trained for it. Quinn shook her head. Calloway was a low-level thief. He wasn't capable of planning something this technical. Keller didn't look convinced. Maybe he wasn't planning it alone. They bagged the uniform and swept the room. Inside a metal drawer, Quinn found a set of files, photocopies of inmate rosters, guard schedules, and internal logs that weren't accessible to the general staff. They had been carefully organized, labeled with dates going back almost a year. This wasn't rushed, Quinn whispered. It was built. Back in the warden's office, Warden Holt's frustration had reached a breaking point. How does a convict steal a uniform, slip past my staff, and walk out the front door? Are you telling me he had help on the inside? Quinn set the bagged uniform on Holt's desk. Not help. Collaboration. Holt paled. You're saying Pike. Pike was the distraction, Quinn said. Calloway was the execution. Keller lifted the visitor log. But someone else was the architect. Someone with access. Someone who came in as Michael Trent. Holt sank into his chair. We run background checks on every visitor. How did he get in? Keller's eyes narrowed. Either the system failed, or someone bypassed it. On his forearm, just below the sleeve, a small tattoo. 5 lines forming a symbol. Keller froze. Hold on. Zoom in. The symbol sharpened into focus, 2 crossed arrows beneath a horizontal line. Quinn felt her stomach tighten. I've seen that before. She pulled out her phone and opened an archive case file, a burglary ring dismantled 5 years earlier. Their leader? A man known only as Arrowface. A ghost thief. A master impersonator. A specialist in infiltrating secure facilities. Arrowface vanished after his arrest warrant was issued. No address. No bank accounts. No known associates. Until now. Keller exhaled. Calloway wasn't the mastermind. He was recruited. Quinn nodded. Arrowface tested Redwood's security, so Calloway could walk out. They barely had time to process this when another officer entered the control room. Call came in from Highway Patrol, he said. They found a car abandoned on Route 52. Inside was Calloway's ID, and this. He handed Quinn a crumpled piece of paper. It was scribbled fast, almost frantic. If you're reading this, he's coming back. Keller frowned. Coming back? For what? Before Quinn could answer, Holt's radio crackled sharply, followed by frantic shouting. We need backup at the north entrance. Someone just breached the perimeter. Quinn and Keller sprinted through the corridor with Holt close behind. Guards were already forming a perimeter outside the prison wall. The Nevada desert stretched out in all directions, empty except for a black SUV now abandoned near the gate. A single figure stood beside it. Calm. Still. Wearing a guard's uniform. Quinn raised her binoculars. The man wasn't Calloway. He was taller. Broad-shouldered. A faint mark visible on his forearm, crossed arrows beneath a line. Arrowface. Before they could shout warnings, the man slowly raised both hands, and placed a small keycard on the roof of the SUV. Then he mouthed 2 words. Round 2. And vanished into the desert darkness, the man who used the system against itself. The desert swallowed Arrowface in seconds. One moment, he stood by the SUV, hands lifted in surrender. The next, he dissolved into the night like a shadow slipping through a crack. Even with spotlights sweeping the open sand, there was no silhouette. No footprints. Nothing. Keller cursed and slammed the cruiser door shut. He planned that. He wanted us to watch him disappear. Quinn didn't respond. She kept her eyes on the keycard sitting on the SUV roof. Carefully, she picked it up with a gloved hand. It was a high-level access badge, the kind that opened every secure door inside Redwood Correctional Facility. A message was etched into the plastic with a pocket knife. Clock started. She didn't know what it meant, but she knew the meaning wasn't good. The inside job becomes a war. Back inside Redwood, Holt was shouting into radios, demanding every guard be accounted for. The facility locked down again. But this time, Quinn could feel the rising panic in every room, every hallway, every face. "This isn't a prison search," Quinn whispered. "This is a battlefield." Keller studied the access badge. Arrowface didn't break Calloway out. He used Calloway as a distraction. Quinn nodded. A test run. Sheltered behind 3 inches of bulletproof glass, Reyes had no trouble infiltrating Redwood pretending to be a government official. That part made sense. But Calloway's escape, his perfectly timed door opening, his stolen uniform, his vanishing act, felt almost too clean, too deliberate. "Arrowface doesn't do favors," Quinn murmured. "Every move he makes is for himself." Keller raised a brow. "Then what does he want with a prison?" Before Quinn could respond, an alarm shrieked through the facility. Lights flickered, then stabilized. A guard's voice cracked through the speakers. "Control has been breached." "Repeat," someone accessed the main panel. They sprinted to the control center. 2 guards lay unconscious on the floor, breathing, but dazed. On the monitors, entire sections of Redwood blinked between open and locked. Someone had taken control of the prison's electronic doors. And then Quinn saw it. Cell 7. Calloway's old cell. Door, unlocked. But Calloway wasn't here. So who was the door unlocked for? The final reveal. In the corner of the control room, a single monitor flickered with a live camera feed from the administrative wing. Quinn leaned closer. A man walked calmly down the hallway, wearing a guard's uniform, face hidden under a cap. It wasn't Arrowface. It wasn't Calloway. It wasn't Pike. It was someone Quinn had never expected. Warden Holt. Her stomach dropped. It's a deepfake, some kind of edited feed. But then the figure stepped into the light. It wasn't Holt. It was someone wearing Holt's uniform. Someone who had lifted his badge months earlier. Someone hiding in plain sight. Arrowface stepped into the warden's office like he owned it. He sat at the desk, folded his hands, and looked directly at the camera. Keller whispered, "Dear God, it wasn't Calloway who walked out the front door." Quinn's breath caught. It was Arrowface. He hadn't helped Calloway escape. He had used Calloway to practice his exit. Calloway was simply a throwaway tool. A pawn. A way to map Redwood's weaknesses, test guard reactions, measure response times, manipulate electronic systems, and judge just how blind the prison could be. Arrowface leaned forward in the chair and placed something on Holt's desk. The warden's real badge. Then he held up a note. "Checkmate." And before anyone could reach the room, he walked calmly out of frame.